Dear audience, you are following the News of America Daily News. I'm editor John Tyson. Today is October 22, 2020. There will be the following main news. 1. Nearly 70 coronavirus cases tied to North Carolina church event. 2. Coronavirus in the U.S., state by state. 3. CDC redefines coronavirus close contact to include multiple brief exposures to virus. 4. Enormous impact of coronavirus translates to 2.5 million years of potential life lost, study. 5. First Lady Melania Trump back to traveling after coronavirus diagnosis. 6. Iowa Supreme Court sides with Republicans on absentee ballot requests. 7. Trump administration pitches second-term policies to Indian country. 8. Biden versus Trump, ObamaCare, access to health care in rural U.S. impacts voters' decisions. 9. Hunter Biden business partner calls email genuine, says Hunter sought dad's advice on deals. 10. If Biden wins and Dems control Congress, SCOTUS will be expanded, Graham. 11. Colorado wildfire explodes in size, forces hundreds to evacuate. 12. At least 3 dead after night of gun violence in New York City, NYPD reports 92% increase in shootings. 13. George Floyd case, second-degree murder, manslaughter charges upheld against Derek Chauvin. 14. Truck driver in Minneapolis who drove through George Floyd protesters is charged. 15. Winter weather brings snowtober from Rockies to upper Midwest, more rounds of snow. Nearly 70 new coronavirus cases in one North Carolina county have been potentially connected with convocation events hosted by a local church. There have been at least 4 hospitalizations and 2 deaths among the Covid-19 cluster, according to the Mecklenburg County Health Department. The events that allegedly spurred the outbreak were hosted by the United House of Prayer for All People between October 4 and 11. 6 of the 68 cases occurred in residents of Madison Saints Paradise South Independent Living in Charlotte. And as a result, the center has tested all residents for COVID-19. According to health officials, the health department said it has reached out to over 90 contacts of cases and called several health agencies in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, New Jersey, and New York to monitor for potential cases connected to these events. Officials also urged residents who received a message from a contact tracer to call the hotline at 980-314-9401. Public Health advises anyone who attended events at the church October 4 to October 11, or who have been in contact with someone who attended events at the church on the dates mentioned above get tested for COVID-19. The health department said in a news release posted Wednesday. Officials also announced a partnership with StarMed Health that will provide no-cost drive-through COVID-19 testing on Thursday and Friday. This is the second time in recent weeks Mecklenburg County residents are being warned about a local coronavirus cluster. Earlier this month, people who attended the Old Mecklenburg Brewery's Mecktoberfest held from September 25 to 27 were warned about potential COVID-19 exposure. Mecklenburg County Public Health Director Gibby Harris later said 2 individuals who tested positive had attended the event. As of Thursday, the novel coronavirus has infected more than 41,261,631 people across 189 countries and territories, resulting in at least 1,131,863 deaths. In the U.S., all 50 states plus the District of Columbia have reported confirmed cases of COVID-19, tallying more than 8,338,179 illnesses and at least 222,211 deaths. Here's a look at the 10 states with the most cases. 1. California, 887,658 cases. 2. Texas, 868,981 cases. 3. Florida, 762,533 cases. 4. New York, 488,506 cases. 5. Illinois, 358,799 cases. 6. Georgia, 343,750 cases. 7. North Carolina, 250,592 cases. 8. Tennessee, 235,861 cases. 9. Arizona, 233,912 cases. 10. New Jersey, 223,223 cases. Here's a look at the top 10 states with the most deaths. 1. New York, 33,371 deaths. 2. Texas, 17,652 deaths. 3. California, 17,192 deaths. 4. New Jersey, 16,245 deaths. 5. Florida, 16,210 deaths. 6. Massachusetts, 9,780 deaths. 7. Illinois, 9,605 deaths. 8. Pennsylvania, 8,546 deaths. 9. Georgia, 7,704 deaths. 10. Michigan, 7,418 deaths. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention revised its definition of close contact to an individual infected with the coronavirus on Wednesday to include multiple brief exposures adding up to over 15 minutes within 24 hours. The agency previously said close contact consisted of being within 6 feet of an infectious person for 15 minutes straight. The change may prompt health departments to do contact tracing in cases where an exposure might previously have been considered too brief. Dr. William Schaffner, a Vanderbilt University infectious diseases expert, told the Associated Press. The revised guideline stems from a CDC report released Wednesday on a 20-year-old male correctional officer in Vermont who had several brief encounters with 6 inmates who later tested positive for COVID-19. This event happened in late July to mid-August, and the CDC did not name the correctional facility. The officer was repeatedly within 6 feet of infected inmates for about 1 minute at a time, which ultimately added up to 17 minutes of exposure, according to an investigation that involved video footage. While inmates wore cloth masks most of the time, they didn't wear masks in the recreation room or during a few brief encounters in cell doorways. The officer wore protective gear but came down with coronavirus symptoms a week later. The CDC update now defines close contact as someone who was within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period starting from 2 days before illness onset, or, for asymptomatic patients, 2 days prior to test specimen collection, until the time the patient is isolated. It marks the second coronavirus-related update that the agency has made in recent weeks, with the first addressing airborne transmission. On October 5, the agency revised its coronavirus guidance to acknowledge the potential for infection through virus-laden particles lingering in the air in enclosed areas with poor ventilation. The revision came 2 weeks after the CDC issued a correction on its website, saying a draft of proposed changes, including guidance on airborne transmission of coronavirus, was posted in error. Coronavirus has led to a staggering loss of life in a brief amount of time, killing over 220,000 people in the U.S. this year. However, a new study suggests the disease's societal impact extends far beyond estimated death counts. Years of active, productive life were forfeited to COVID-19. One researcher said. Finding the U.S. death toll translates to over 2.5 million years of potential life lost. Dr. Stephen Elledge, study author and professor at Harvard Medical School, said the profound loss of life imposes emotional and economic burdens on victims' loved ones. Who among us would not cherish another 5 years together with a father, mother, son, daughter, or close friend, he wrote. Elledge essentially quantified the absence left behind by COVID-19, and drew his results from data on life expectancy and mortality from the Social Security Administration and U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Findings were posted this week in MedRxiv ahead of peer review. This is an astounding cost and surprising given the apparent public misperception that COVID-19 is a disease that disproportionately impacts the elderly and is somehow of less concern to the rest of society. Elledge wrote. This misunderstanding is a result of a failure to appreciate the fact that individuals considered elderly still have substantial remaining life expectancies relative to the life expectancy at birth. Nearly half, Roughly 45% of potential years lost occurred in people under 65, per the study. While coronavirus fatalities occur far less often in younger populations. Complications do happen and death can take decades off a young person's projected lifespan. Older adults and those with underlying medical conditions are considered to be at an increased risk for severe illness. According to the CDC, in the United States, 8 out of 10 COVID-19 related deaths are among adults aged 65 years and older. In an alleged study, nearly 1.2 million years were lost among those younger than 65. And older adults accounted for the remaining 1.4 million years forfeited to the disease. However, there are possible sources of error in the data. For example, life expectancies vary across ethnicities in the U.S. population. And this factor was not fully accounted for in the analysis. Lacking statistics on comorbidities also create a source of error in the data. Health issues like obesity, chronic kidney disease and diabetes can result in shorter life expectancies. And since the analysis could not fully take this into account, some of the calculations may be artificially increased. First Lady Melania Trump made her first public appearance since her coronavirus diagnosis. On Thursday while traveling to Tennessee with President Trump for the final presidential debate. The First Lady did not accompany the president to a campaign rally in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, due to a lingering cough, despite having recovered from the novel coronavirus. Melania Trump's chief of staff, Stephanie Grisham, said the First Lady continues to feel better every day, following her recovery from COVID-19 earlier in the week. The First Lady's last public appearance was during the September 29 presidential debate in Ohio. It was announced earlier this month that she and the president had both tested positive for the virus. Their results came after close aide Hope Hicks also tested positive. The First Lady announced last week that she had tested negative. Thursday night's debate is expected to be contentious, with the president and Democratic nominee Joe Biden facing off on topics from race in America to fighting COVID-19. The Iowa Supreme Court on Wednesday upheld a lower court's ruling on a new law that makes it more difficult to fill absentee ballot requests ahead of the upcoming deadline. In a 4-3 decision, which was seen as a win for Republicans, the court said county auditors must contact an applicant when there is an issue with their absentee ballot request. Auditors previously were allowed to fill in any missing information that they were able to obtain from the state's voter registration database. We are not persuaded the statute imposes a significant burden on absentee voters. It is not a direct burden on voting itself, the court's 4-justice majority wrote. About 1.5% of the more than 842,400 absentee ballots requested in Iowa had not been filled as of Wednesday, according to the Secretary of State. The minority argued that the majority misses the point, and that this case is not about filling out the absentee ballot request form properly. Instead, they say this case is about the back-end process of timely correcting the errors that clearly happen on a fairly large scale, and getting an absentee ballot back to the voter in time to use it. The decision was the second to go in favor of Republicans in the past week. Last week, the court ruled pre-filled absentee ballot request forms could not be sent to voters. The deadline to request an absentee ballot in Iowa is 5 p.m. on Saturday, October 24. The Trump administration is promising Native Americans improved infrastructure, increased business opportunities, higher quality education, and better health care if he wins re-election. The proposals were outlined in a 3-page policy pitch the White House released this week, titled, "Putting America's First Peoples First, Forgotten No More." The document outlined 5 core principles President Trump has said he uses to fight for Indian country, as well as 10 bullet-point promises for the future. The administration pledged to ensure safer communities, set policies that would foster 51,000 new Native American-owned businesses, improve infrastructure and digital connectivity, promote tribal economic self-determination, increase federal investment in tribal colleges and universities, respect Native American culture by prioritizing repatriation of remains and cultural artifacts, provide high-quality education options for children, host a summit of national tribal leaders, ensure better care through the Indian Health Service, and honor Native Americans' tradition of military service. Healthcare is an important component. Already shrinking Native American communities have been hit disproportionately hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. And Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez told ADN on Wednesday that he blamed the federal government's response. "I am sure if the federal government had intervened a lot quicker, things would have been a lot better," Nez said. "It's obvious there was a lack of support. Tribes have also been plagued by an epidemic of missing and murdered indigenous persons as well as opioid and meth crises. In addition, rural and often remote tribal lands have limited access to broadcast and electric lines, though not all of them want changes, because of concern over potential negative environmental impacts." Trump also pledged $10 million to create new tribal charter schools and hand out school choice scholarships and promised to increase funding to some native language programs by 25%, according to AZ Central. During a call with Navajo Nation Vice President Myron Lizer and Cherokee Nation's Oklahoma Republican Rep. Mark Wayne Mullen, senior administration officials went over the commitments point by point and heralded several previous accomplishments such as the repatriation of human remains and funerary artifacts to Pueblo tribes, and legislation recognizing 6 Virginia tribes and Savannah's Act. Savannah's Act was created to strengthen law enforcement responses to missing and murdered indigenous persons cases. The officials also touted $8 billion of disbursements to tribes battling COVID-19, and the U.S. Justice Department's more than $295 million in grants for tribes. Lizer, the Navajo vice president, reportedly lauded the president's efforts and commitment to long-term issues for Indian country. Trump's plan contains some similarities to that of Democratic challenger Joe Biden, who released his own policy platform at the beginning of the month. The 15-page Biden-Harris plan for tribal nations hits on 8 key promises, including strengthening nation-to-nation relationships, providing quality health care, restoring tribal lands, and addressing climate change, ensuring the safety of Native communities, expanding economic opportunity, investing in education, commemorating Native veterans, and ensuring Native Americans can exercise their right to vote. Members of Arizona's Navajo Nation had brought a lawsuit alleging that their voters would be disenfranchised by requirements that ballots be received by 7 p.m. GMT on Election Day, citing U.S. Postal Service delivery concerns. However, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals concluded they had no legal standing to ask for an extension. The Biden-Harris plan would restore the Voting Rights Act, appoint legal leaders who would challenge laws designed to suppress the Native American vote, and establish a Native American voting rights task force aiming to ensure equal access to voter registration and polling sites. Arivica, Arizona, Kathleen Wishnick left the hustle and bustle of Sacramento for a new life in the rural deserts of Arizona more than 15 years ago. She said her family wanted a place in the middle of nowhere, and they found it in the small town of Arivica, which boasts a population of about 684 people. The peaceful setting has its perks, Wishnick told America Daily News. But when it comes to health care, access is almost non-existent. The roads when it rains are iffy, sometimes ambulances can't get in, people said to us. Well, you won't have any health services. I said, well, it's just a helicopter ride away. But when it happens to you, you tend to rethink that just a little bit, she said. Wishnick says the town does have a clinic, but it's only open certain days a week, and has just 2 doctors. For more advanced procedures or to see a specialist, it involves driving to the closest hospital about an hour away. With only days until the 2020 presidential election, the topic of health care access, insurance, and affordability is front and center in Wishnick's mind. And she is not alone. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, about 2.8 million Arizonans live in areas that the federal government says has a health care shortage, ranking 9th in the country overall. I believe everyone in Arizona and across the United States should have access to care. Dr. Daniel Dirksen, Associate Vice President for Health Sciences at the University of Arizona and Director of the Arizona Center for Rural Health, told America Daily News. We are certainly spending enough as a nation, and spending enough as a state to cover every single person with the care that they need, so that they get it when they need it, such as during a COVID-19 pandemic. Dirksen said the Affordable Care Act, or ObamaCare, which former Vice President Joe Biden wants to protect and expand, is a good thing and would be harmful to rural residents to lose. We need to make sure that coverage is built upon, not torn away. We need to build on the gains made, not throw things away. And especially during a time where people really need the healthcare and access. He added, the Affordable Care Act does protect individuals from being charged more, or being denied coverage, or dropped from coverage once they exceed a certain amount. He said that about 20 million Americans could lose their health care, and more than 500,000 Arizonians, if provisions in the Health Care Act went away. President Trump, on the other hand, wants to scrap the Affordable Care Act and replace it with some sort of different plan. He's spoken several times about lowering the cost of prescription medications. According to Dr. Jane Orient, the executive director of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, the Affordable Care Act actually isn't so affordable, and has caused nothing but trouble for millions of Americans. I know so many people who have lost their insurance 3, 4, 5 times. They get another plan, it's much more expensive. The deductible is so high they might as well be uninsured, because they can't afford to use it. She said, you can't make something affordable by adding on all types of regulations and requirements and mandates, it's just not affordable. Either way, both doctors can agree that the cost of healthcare is currently too high in the United States and needs to be reduced. They say everyone deserves equal access to quality care. As for Wishnick, she says the little clinic in Arivica works well for minor issues, but she worries about what will happen in times of emergencies. I would say it's something that people think about a lot of the time. That's one of the downsides when you move into a rural community. You don't really think about those kinds of things, she said. Tony Bobulinski, who was listed as the recipient of an email published by the New York Post that appeared to detail a business arrangement involving a Chinese company and members of the Biden family, has confirmed that the email is genuine and provided more information regarding the Biden's role in the deal. The email includes a note that Hunter has some office expectations he will elaborate. A proposed equity split references 24H and 10 held by H for the big guy, with no further details. The reference to the big guy in the much publicized May 13 in 2017 email is in fact a reference to Joe Biden, Bobulinski said in a statement to America Daily News. Bobulinski said he is the CEO of Sinohawk Holdings, which he explained was a partnership between the Chinese operating through CEFC/Chairman Ye and the Biden family. He said he was brought on as CEO by Hunter Biden and James Gilliar, who was listed as the sender of the email. Bobulinski went on to say he does not believe Joe Biden's past claim that he and Hunter did not discuss his son Hunter's business, claiming that Hunter frequently referenced asking him for his sign-off or advice on various potential deals. I've seen Vice President Biden saying he never talked to Hunter about his business. I've seen firsthand that that's not true, because it wasn't just Hunter's business. They said they were putting the Biden family name and its legacy on the line. Bobulinski said, the Biden family aggressively leveraged the Biden family name to make millions of dollars from foreign entities, even though some were from communist-controlled China. He added, Bobulinski also said that he believes that the Chinese involvement in the deal was political or influence investment on their part, and that Hunter wanted to use the company as his personal piggy bank by just taking money out of it as soon as it came from the Chinese. America Daily News reached out to the Biden campaign for comment, but they did not immediately respond. After the New York Post published emails reportedly recovered from a laptop said to have belonged to Hunter Biden, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Representative Adam Schiff, D. California, claimed that the information was not legitimate, and that it was part of a Russian disinformation scheme. Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe pushed back against this claim, saying, there is no intelligence that supports that. Bobulinski also said that the information he relayed is not part of any disinformation campaign. Any suggestion to the contrary is false and offensive, he said. Bobulinski added that the Senate Homeland Security and Finance Committees requested that he turn over all documents relating to my business affairs with the Biden family, as well as various foreign entities and individuals, and that he intends to fully cooperate. I have extensive relevant records and communications, and I intend to produce those items to both committees in the immediate future, he said. Joe Biden and the Democratic Party want to expand the Supreme Court to at least 13 seats to make it liberal. If Republicans succeed in confirming Amy Coney Barrett, Sen. Lindsey Graham, Rs.C., told Fox and Friends on Thursday, in a pre-recorded interview expected to air this weekend. The Democratic presidential nominee told 60 Minutes he is going to form a commission to examine how to reform the court system, which might go well beyond packing. For weeks, he avoided taking a clear stance on the issue before the November 3rd election. The last thing we need to do is turn the Supreme Court into just a political football. Whoever has the most votes gets whatever they want, Biden said. Presidents come and go. Supreme Court justices stay for generations. Graham responded Thursday morning. I've known Joe for 25 years. What he said, to me, was just gibberish. I don't know what it means. Here's what is going to happen. If they get the House, the Senate, and the White House, they're going to expand the Supreme Court. Graham said. Look at what happened to Dianne Feinstein for hugging me. He added. The people who want to destroy her life for giving me a hug are going to insist that they expand the court from 9 to probably 13 to make it liberal. And Joe Biden is along for the ride. He's no more in charge of the Democratic Party than I am. Graham said. The people who are trying to destroy Dianne Feinstein's life are in charge of the party. Voters, if you don't get that, you're making a mistake. And what Joe said makes zero sense constitutionally. The Senate Judiciary Committee chairman called Trump's Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett the gold standard for the highest court, and said Democrats had their chance to vet her. Graham said she will be nominated in on the court by Tuesday. Hundreds of people were forced to evacuate from a Colorado town on Wednesday as gusty winds fanned an out-of-control wildfire that exploded in size. The U.S. Forest Service said the East Troublesome fire increased significantly in size, growing to over 125,602 acres, and being only 5% contained as of Thursday morning. It was a challenging day, Grand County Sheriff Brett Schroetland said in a message posted to Facebook. The blaze started on October 14 but exploded in size on Wednesday, as the region was under a red flag warning due to low humidity and gusty winds. According to Schroetland, the fire grew at a rate of 6,000 acres per hour on Wednesday. It was originally estimated at only 19,086 acres before winds fanned the flames. The winds were strong, he said. The fire behavior was strong. The fire forced the entire evacuation of the town of Grand Lake, located about 30 miles northwest of Boulder in the Rockies. That has a population of around 400 people. Evacuation orders were also issued to surrounding areas. No injuries have been reported, but officials feared the blaze could have torched entire neighborhoods. I don't know what we'll see in the morning, to be honest, Schroetland said late Wednesday. But you know what? Together, as a community, we're going to get through this. The blaze has closed the western areas of Rocky Mountain National Park, and has been impacting areas along the Highway 34 corridor, in addition to the Grand Lake area. Those who evacuated said they didn't have much time to grab anything. The fire also forced the closure of the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park. The safety of the communities being impacted, and our firefighters remains our highest priority, fire officials said on the interagency site in C-Web. The state of Colorado has joined other states out west in experiencing a devastating wildfire season in 2020. The largest fire in state history, the Cameron Peak Fire, is only 55% contained and has burned 206,977 acres. That blaze has sent smoke over the Fort Collins area, destroyed 100 structures, and forced hundreds to evacuate their homes. Another fire that has destroyed dozens of homes near Boulder has burned 9,978 acres, and is only 24% contained, according to officials. Boulder County officials said the Colwood fire has damaged or destroyed at least 26 properties, with at least 20 homes a total loss. Due to the ongoing fire danger, officials have closed vast areas of national forest from areas west of Denver all the way to the Wyoming border. The risk for fire danger remains high in Colorado on Thursday, with dry, warm, breezy conditions not helping the situation. Gusty winds and warm temperatures will not budge, even as areas to the north see snow. 3 people were killed across New York City Wednesday night, among nearly a dozen shot as city gun violence continues to increase exponentially. As of Thursday, the city had 1,235 shootings in 2020. A 92.4% increase from the same period last year, according to NYPD figures. During one deadly shooting in Brooklyn around 10:30 p.m., a group was standing outside when a vehicle with at least 3 men inside opened fire and sped off. WCBS-TV reported. 6 people were shot, including a 23-year-old man who died. Another 28-year-old man died after being shot multiple times in Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood. A shooting in the Bronx claimed the life of a 23-year-old man in a drive-by incident. There were separate shootings in 3 other Bronx neighborhoods. The Police Benevolent Association, the union that represents rank-and-file officers, criticized city leaders in recent months over the surge in violent crime. In a tweet, the union said elected officials show no sign of rolling back those laws and policies that have undermined the public's safety. The number of shooting victims in the city nearly doubled from last year. NYPD statistics show. In 2019, 762 people were reported shot, compared to 1,515 so far this year. A judge upheld the second-degree murder and manslaughter charges Thursday against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in connection to the death of George Floyd in May. Hennepin County Judge Peter A. Cahill granted part of the defense's motion and dropped the third-degree murder charge against Chauvin. Cahill also denied motions to dismiss the charges against the other 3 officers present. When Chauvin was captured on video pressing his knee onto a handcuffed Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes before his death in custody, Tou Thao, J. Alexanderkin, and Thomas Lane remain charged with aiding and abetting related to the incident that sparked a nationwide reckoning on racial injustice. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat, reacted to the decision on Twitter, saying the judge's move to uphold the remaining charges against Chauvin, as well as the charges against the other officers, was an important step toward justice for George Floyd. Eric Nelson, the defense attorney representing Chauvin, declined to comment to Fox News. Ben Crump, the attorney for the Floyd family, and his co-counsel praised the judge's ruling to preserve the most serious charges against Chauvin. "We are gratified that the court preserved 8 of the 9 charges against Derek Chauvin, including the more serious second-degree murder charge for which we expect a conviction, based on the clear and evident use of excessive force that we all saw on video," Crump said in a statement. Prosecutors argued there was probable cause for the officers to go to trial on all of the charges, saying Chauvin intentionally assaulted Floyd, which is an element of the second-degree murder charge, and that the other officers assisted. Defense attorneys had argued that there was not enough probable cause to charge the former officers. Chauvin's attorney argued his client had no intent to assault or kill Floyd, while attorneys for the other officers argued that their clients did not intend or conspire to help Chauvin. According to his memo, Cahill determined probable cause based on the factual background of the case. Evidence illustrated how the manager of Cup Foods in Minneapolis called police to report 2 men tried to use counterfeit $20 bills to purchase cigarettes on May 25. Ken and Lane responded to the supermarket around 8:08 p.m., and the manager said the men were across the street in a blue vehicle. Floyd was in the driver's seat, and Lane pulled his gun, ordered Floyd out of the car, and handcuffed him. Both officers walked Floyd across the street, but he refused to get into the patrol car, and the officers called for backup. Chauvin and Thao arrived about 10 minutes later. The officers struggled with Floyd to get him into the back of the squad car, and Floyd fell to the ground. Court documents illustrated a critical 9+ minutes when Floyd was subdued and restrained on the street, with Chauvin kneeling on the back of his neck, pinning his face to the floor. Kung and Lane restrained and pinned Floyd's back and legs to the street, and Thao maintained bystander watch, the documents said. Floyd continued to plead for his life, saying repeatedly that he could not breathe, to tell his kids he loves them, and that the officers were going to kill him. Chauvin dismissively said Floyd was doing a lot of talking and yelling, which takes oxygen. And, Thao told onlookers, "This is why you don't do drugs, kids." Bystanders increasingly shouted to the officers that Floyd was not resisting arrest and was no longer breathing. An out-of-uniform, off-duty Minneapolis firefighter at the scene demanded the officers take Floyd's pulse, but Chauvin and Thao refused to allow her to attend to Floyd until an ambulance arrived. All 4 officers were fired from the Minneapolis Police Department the next day. Chauvin was arrested and charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter 4 days after Floyd's death on Memorial Day. The Hennepin County medical examiner ruled Floyd's death a homicide on June 6. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison upgraded the charges against Chauvin to include second-degree murder, and filed charges against the 3 other officers present during the incident. Thao, Can, and Lane are each charged with 1 count of aiding and abetting second-degree murder and 1 count of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. Chauvin was released from jail on October 7 on a $1 million bond. The other 3 had previously posted bail amounts of $750,000 and have been freed pending trial. Currently, all 4 men are scheduled to face trial together in March, but the judge is weighing a request to have them tried separately. A truck driver who drove into a large crowd of protesters on a bridge in Minneapolis following the killing of George Floyd was charged Thursday with 2 criminal counts. Hennepin County prosecutors charged Bogdan Vekerko of Otsego with making threats of violence, a felony, and criminal vehicular operation, a gross misdemeanor, the Star Tribune reported. Prosecutors allege that he sought to scare protesters out of his path, and could have seen them with plenty of time to stop before his truck reached them. Vekerko, 35, drove onto the Interstate 35W bridge over the Mississippi River, as thousands of people protested the death of Floyd, who died 6 days earlier in the custody of Minneapolis police. Nobody was seriously hurt, though criminal complaint says at least 1 protester suffered abrasions as she jumped to get out of the truck's path. Vekerko told investigators he was returning from a fuel delivery in Minneapolis and didn't mean to drive into the protest or hurt anyone. Authorities had closed area highways as a precaution, but traffic camera video showed that the trucker entered the downtown freeway system from a ramp that wasn't barricaded, for reasons that remain unclear. When Vekerko saw the crowd on the bridge, he relied on his professional instinct and training to avoid a hard break that could have jackknifed the truck and could have seriously injured or killed thousands of people, and instead slowed his vehicle while maneuvering through the parted crowd. His attorney Mark Solheim told the newspaper. Governor Tim Walz and Public Safety Commissioner John Harrington said at the time that it appeared that the trucker was confused about the freeway closures and didn't intend any harm. An incredibly strong weather pattern has set up across the northern tier of the county on Thursday, bringing yet more October snow to the region. A storm system moving across the central high plains will bring more snow from the northwest through the northern and central Rockies and into the upper Midwest. This is round 2. We have round 3 that's around the corner, Fox News senior meteorologist Janice Dean said on Fox and Friends. We've had record-breaking snow across some of these areas. Snowtober, here it is. This region has just seen record-breaking snow for the month of October in recent days, and more is on the way. Winter storm warnings and watches are in effect, as several more inches of snow will fall over parts of the upper Mississippi Valley. In some cases, over a foot of snow on top of what they've already received this week. Dean said. Northern tier snow developing through Thursday night will blanket the northern Rockies, northern plains, and upper Midwest through Thursday night. Gusty winds over 35 miles per hour and a widespread 6 to 12 inches are expected from this system, making for dangerous road conditions at times. Yet another wintry storm will develop over the weekend, moving from the Rockies into the plains. But this one will be much more widespread, digging deeper into the central U.S. The cold air associated with this storm system will reach as far south as Texas on Friday. Travel will be difficult and dangerous in many cities across these regions, where it's too warm for snow. Strong to severe thunderstorms will be a risk along with heavy rain over the mid-Mississippi Valley up into the Great Lakes. Meanwhile, the risk for fire danger remains high over California, the Southwest, and parts of the Texas Panhandle with dry, warm, breezy conditions not helping the situation. Gusty winds and warm temperatures will not budge, even as areas to the north are seeing snow. So, unfortunately, we're not getting any of that moisture into areas that need to see it where we have the wildfires that continue to burn, Dean said. Please like and subscribe to follow the latest daily news. Don't forget to comment your opinion on this newsletter. Thank you for your time. Goodbye and see you in the next news.